Alright, here's the deal. I wanted this video to be about me taking you all on an outdoor shoot to show you how I set that up and how I deal with the lighting. Now I actually shot that video, but I wasn't happy with the way the footage came out. And now the weather is kind of crappy and I don't want to go and shoot outside in this kind of weather because then I wouldn't be able to show you all what I wanted to talk about with natural light and working with sunlight and all of that. So the question is, what should I do for this video? And I think instead of letting the weather prevent me from having fun and doing what I want to do, I'm gonna take you guys on an indoor shoot and show you a little trick on how you can get a bit of extra mileage out of your Nendoroid playsets. So what's this trick about? Well, let's say you just spent a nice chunk of change on one of these Nendoroid playsets, but you're a little bit disappointed that they're only really sized for Nendoroids. I mean, there aren't really any other types of figures that could fit in here, right? Wrong. This pro tip isn't me saying, oh, you can use them with Qposh and Parfum and Figmas. You can actually use them with scale figures. There is a way. Now, they're not going to be able to stand inside the set because they're not the right size. But let's say if you just wanted this playset to act as an interesting backdrop, there is a way that you can get them to look about the same size. Now this elf is a 7th scale, but she's like a small 7th scale. So I'd say probably from 1/8 scale to 1/7 scale you'll be okay. 6 scale might be pushing it a little bit, but I haven't actually tried it with a figure that large. Okay, I just finished setting up, so let me show you what is going on here. So I got my figure set up in front of the Nendoroid room. So it's not going to stay in it, but it will be in front of it. Then I have 2 work lamps here that are going to kind of bounce some light through this white board into the room. And I just have some of these plastic houseplants here just kind of to break up this whiteness outside. Now let me show you what the trick is to get these to look right. So if you start up really close and you frame your figure this way from this distance, you'll see that the size difference between the two is exaggerated. But now pay attention to what happens when you back up. And I'll show you this on my phone too. We've taken a few steps back away from the figure, and let me just bring up my phone camera to show you what it sees. And I've popped this into manual mode because I've gotten a few questions about manual settings on Facebook, so I figured I'll just knock out 2 birds with 1 stone here. But anyway, look what happens when I zoom in now on my phone camera. You can see that the size difference between the figure and the Nendoroid playset is a lot less exaggerated. And this is actually just playing on the laws of perspective. The caveat is that there's only so much you can do with 2 things that have this amount of size difference between them. So a 7th scale figure, that's probably on the large end of figures that this trick is going to work for. If you try this with an 8th scale or a 10th scale, it's going to look a lot more natural. The other caveat is that well, my phone camera doesn't actually have an optical zoom, so what's happening is I'm just cropping out the pixels that aren't being used in this image when I use the zoom function. So you're definitely going to sacrifice a little bit of detail and image quality. But actually what I want to do is just zoom out and take this photo while zoomed out so that I can crop it later and have a little more control over it. So before I do take the picture, I'll walk you through some of the settings that we should make note of. The main one is that the flash should be off. So that's off, that's good. White balance, this is going to control the kind of color cast that you're getting from your lights. So I'm gonna set that to auto because that's doing a pretty good job right now. And that's gonna make sure that the whites look actually white. Autofocus, we'll have that at automatic. And then the next setting is ISO. So one way you can think about this is how sensitive your camera is going to be to the light coming in. So if we raise our ISO, you'll get a brighter image, but you're also going to get a lot more noise in the final image. So I'm actually going to put that all the way down to the lowest, which is ISO 50. And then the last one we have is the shutter speed. I'm going to actually leave this on automatic, but this just controls how long your camera sensor is going to be reading the scene here to get the image. So at 1/10 of a second, that looks all right. I'm going to try to keep my hands as steady as I can and take this shot. Okay. So now as we zoom in, we can see that that's kind of convincing a little bit. So on this phone, there's a Galaxy S8 Plus. The manual mode is actually gonna also capture a raw image. So I'm gonna process that and see what we come up with. Here's the final picture. The image quality is really bad because I've had to crop it so much. So that is a limitation of the smartphone camera. But the reason I chose the smartphone camera is because I wanted to show that you can actually use this trick without having like a telephoto lens or an optical zoom or like a large sensor camera. It's really all down to the laws of perspective. So if you can control the distance between yourself and the figure and then the figure and the backdrop, then you can kind of play with their apparent size in your photo. But where a telephoto lens or optical zoom are going to help you is with the image quality, so you'll get a lot more detail and resolution if you're able to zoom in. Now I want to show you a few other photos that I've taken using this trick. So here's Good Smile Company's Suruga Kamaru in front of another Nendoroid playset. This one I shot on a 300mm lens. So the way to think about that is I had to get this framing by backing way far away. I think for this shot I was probably across the room, if not out in the hallway. So since this is an 8 scale figure, it's a lot closer in size to the kind of Nendoroid furniture and everything in the background. So they're gonna look roughly the same size from the distance that I had to back up at. The next one is Kotobukiya's Rei Ayanami. This is another 8 scale figure on the Nendoroid Western Life set. This shot I took with a 100mm lens, so I didn't back up nearly as far, and I was able to get a little more of the background in with this framing of the figure. So you can see again that because it's 8 scale, it fits in a little bit better with the size of the Nendoroid set. And this last shot is a little more recent. This is Alter's Momohime. Now, you could probably, if you had to, take a separate photo of your Nendoroid playset, slap it on like a computer monitor, and then shoot your scale figure in front of that. But I found that if you shoot the figure and the set together, it gives you a little more flexibility in terms of positioning your lights, and also you don't have to deal with any glare from your monitors. So I like using this technique, you know, as long as I'm not dealing with like 6 scale figures or larger. So that's all there is to this trick. If you've got a Nendoroid set that you like the aesthetic of and you wish you could use it with a scale figure, then all you have to do is try backing up and then zooming in. It's a nice way to get creative with your photos if you're indoors on a rainy day. And I think it's also a pretty good way to learn about perspective and compression if you do this as an exercise. So that's all I had for this video. I'm just kind of waiting for the weather to get better so that I can go outside and do the outdoor shoot that I had originally planned. But it might not clear up for this entire week. So if I don't get a chance to do that, then maybe I'll just do something else indoors. Or who knows, maybe I'll go outside and shoot in a thunderstorm. We'll see what happens. So I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.